Taking a dramatic turn here. You're from New York. We know that New York City is already on a heightened terror watch alert at this point going into the weekend, especially with that Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. Your reaction to what we're learning and maybe anything that you can share with us that you've heard.
Sure. Right now, what we're hearing is that there was a vehicle that was crossing the bridge, exploded. Both occupants have been reported dead. The FBI, HSI are on scene and are going to, send info when that's available. There's no reported injuries from Customs and Border Patrol. And I know that the Homeland Security Committee are in contact with, everyone on the scene to get updated information. But I think this just shows how volatile our country is and things are because of much what we see at our southern border. I mean, now we have the northern border where we have an attack, and we need to focus on what's important here. And I mean, we've been talking about the last few days, these massive cuts. I mean, you mentioned New York City as we started the segment. I mean, massive cuts in New York City to law enforcement agencies. I mean, this is a perfect example. We need to remain vigilant, and we cannot allow our priorities to wane, and we need to make sure that the resources are there to maintain that vigilance. And this is a perfect example. I mean, we're all concerned about tomorrow at the Thanksgiving Day parade. Obviously, as you mentioned, there's heightened threats, and everyone is prepared. But this is this shows us that we cannot be cutting resources from law enforcement agencies or any agencies for that matter because of other issues that we're facing, especially in New York City.
Yeah, Congressman, tomorrow, obviously Thanksgiving, it's about 20 after 2. The day before, millions of people across the country right now, they're getting on airplanes, they're in the car. I'm sure they're seeing on their phones that this has happened at a transportation point. So are you worried about panic setting in? Are you worried about, especially people in that region up in New York kind of having their holidays altered or ruined a little bit here? How do we keep that panic? How do we keep decorum, so to speak, going forward?
Well, I think the best thing that we can do is to continue to reiterate the fact that we have some of the best law enforcement agencies that are prepared. They have been proactive in trying to make sure that we keep everyone safe. Obviously, things like this and incidents like this do occur, but realize that they're being investigated. We will get to the bottom of it. We will find out who's responsible for it and move from there. When we hear about terrorist attacks, when we hear about plans of terrorists, whether they're domestic or foreign, much of it has to do with, like you mentioned, with instilling fear. And that is something that we need to focus on, especially as I think this is probably the busiest travel day of the year. We need to make sure that people remain calm, that we understand that this is, as far as we know right now, an isolated incident. It is being investigated. We will get to the bottom of it, find out who's responsible, and take the appropriate action necessary.
Congressman, you said we need to remain vigilant, but oftentimes it seems nearly impossible to do that when we're discussing our U.S. borders, which are incredibly porous. And we mentioned this a bit earlier. Your colleague, Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, whose district is Niagara County, told us just the other day about how concerned she is about the northern border and the number of terrorists who do come through there. What do you think more broadly something like this says about this administration's approach to border security?
Well, I think the administration's approach to border security has been it's laughable. I mean, there has been no approach, and that's the problem. The House of Representatives a few months ago passed the Secure the Border Act. Is probably one of the most comprehensive border bills we've seen in a long time. It invests in our infrastructure along the borders, both our northern and southern border. It hires more Customs and Border Patrol agents. It invests in infrastructure along those borders to keep them safe. It looks at and makes sure that we have the resources to keep our borders secure and safe. But yet it was sent over to the Senate, the Democrat-led Senate, and it is there collecting dust. So when the Democrats want to point fingers, when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Secretary Mayorkas want to say that they have control, operational control of the southern border, it is clear that they do not. There has never been a situation in this nation's history where we are dealing with borders like we have.